The casket was being lowered into the ground when I saw them walking hand in hand toward the cemetery. My husband of 23 years, Richard, and the woman he'd sworn to me was just a colleague, both of them dressed in black, like they belonged there, like they had the right to stand on the sacred ground where my mother was about to rest forever. The woman, Vanessa, had the audacity to carry white lilies, my mother's favorite flowers. Flowers I had specifically told Richard about when he asked what he could bring to the funeral. My legs gave out beneath me, and my sister Catherine had to hold me upright as the funeral director paused the ceremony, unsure of what to do as whispers rippled through the gathered mourners. I had forgiven him just yesterday. Just yesterday. "It was a mistake, Eleanor," he had said, his voice breaking as he knelt before me in our kitchen, the same kitchen where we had celebrated our daughter Maddie's college acceptance just 3 months earlier. "It didn't mean anything. It's over. I choose you. I'll always choose you." I believed him. After finding the text messages, after confronting him, after 3 sleepless nights of crying until my eyes were swollen shut, I had chosen to believe him because my mother was dying, and I couldn't bear to lose them both at once. "We'll get through this," I had whispered, holding his face between my palms, searching for the man I had loved since sophomore year at Ohio State. "For now, I just need you to be there for me tomorrow. Mom's funeral. I can't do it alone." He had held me then, rocked me in his arms, promised me I would never be alone, and I had fallen asleep that night with the weight of betrayal still heavy on my chest, but believing, truly believing, that we would find our way back to each other. Yet here he was, bringing her to my mother's funeral. The worst part wasn't the public humiliation, though I could feel every pair of eyes shift from my mother's casket to this grotesque spectacle. It wasn't even the betrayal of the promises he'd made just hours before. It was the realization that dawned on me as I watched them approach. This wasn't an accident or a thoughtless mistake. This was a deliberate choice, a statement. I was 52 years old, had built a life, raised a daughter, supported my husband through law school and the founding of his own practice, nursed my mother through her final battle with cancer, and in this moment, I felt like I was nothing, invisible, replaceable. "Mom?" My daughter's voice broke through the fog of shock. Maddie stood beside me, her young face contorted with confusion and rage. At 20, she shouldn't have to witness this. She shouldn't have to choose between her parents. She shouldn't have to comfort her mother at her grandmother's funeral, while her father paraded his mistress for all to see. Richard's eyes met mine across the distance that separated us. There was no shame there, no remorse. Just a cold, evaluating look that I had never seen before, not in all our years together. In that moment, I knew that the man walking toward us was a stranger wearing my husband's face. "Continue," I said to the funeral director, my voice surprisingly steady. I turned my back on Richard and Vanessa, focusing instead on my mother's casket. My mother deserves a proper goodbye. Catherine's arm tightened around my shoulders. My brother Michael stepped forward, placing himself like a shield between me and the approaching pair. I heard harsh whispers, then footsteps retreating. I didn't turn to see where they went. I couldn't bear to know if they had stayed or left. As the ceremony continued, as dirt was thrown on my mother's casket, as friends and family offered condolences with pity in their eyes, a cold clarity washed over me. The Eleanor who had forgiven her husband yesterday was gone. The woman who had built her life around keeping everyone else happy had died alongside her mother. Standing there in the November chill, watching the cemetery workers begin to fill in my mother's grave, I made a silent promise to my mother, to my daughter, to myself. This would not be how my story ended. I just didn't know yet how I would write the next chapter. My name is Eleanor Mitchell. Until yesterday, I thought I knew exactly who I was. A dedicated high school English teacher in suburban Columbus, Ohio. A mother to a brilliant college sophomore. A daughter who had spent the last 3 years balancing work with caring for my mother through her battle with ovarian cancer. And a wife. A loyal, trusting wife to Richard Mitchell, the man whose law practice I had helped build by working extra summer jobs, proofreading his briefs late into the night, and hosting countless dinner parties for potential clients. Every morning for the past 23 years, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to prepare breakfast for Richard before getting myself ready for my own day. I graded papers during my lunch breaks so I could be fully present for my students during class hours, then came home to prepare dinner and handle household chores. On weekends, I visited my mother, first at her home, and then at the hospice facility, reading her favorite Jane Austen novels aloud while she drifted in and out of consciousness. I believed I was building something meaningful, something lasting. I believed in partnership, in sacrifice, in the quiet dignity of putting family first. I believed that Richard and I were a team. The morning after my mother's funeral, I sat alone in our kitchen, the kitchen that Richard and I had renovated together 5 years ago, arguing good-naturedly over the merits of quartz versus granite countertops. The house was silent. Maddie had stayed with me last night but had to return to her campus this morning for midterms. She'd left reluctantly, her young face tight with worry. "I can skip the test, Mom," she'd insisted, her suitcase still by the door. "Professor Davis would understand." "No, honey," I'd told her, summoning a smile I didn't feel. "Education comes first. Your grandmother would say the same thing. What about—" She hadn't been able to say his name. "Is he coming back?" I honestly didn't know. Richard hadn't returned home after the funeral. His side of the bed remained untouched, his phone going straight to voicemail whenever I called. Part of me hoped he would walk through the door with an impossible explanation that would make sense of his unforgivable behavior. A larger part of me hoped I would never have to look at him again. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence. 9:47 a.m. On a normal Tuesday, I would be in my classroom right now, discussing The Great Gatsby with my AP Literature students. But the principal had insisted I take the week off. "Family comes first, Eleanor," she'd said, not knowing how those words would soon come to mock me. The coffee in my mug had gone cold, untouched. Outside, autumn leaves swirled across our manicured lawn. The lawn Richard had been too busy to rake last weekend because I now realized he had been with her. My phone chimed with another message of condolence. They had been pouring in since the funeral, carefully worded texts that danced around what everyone had witnessed. "Thinking of you during this difficult time. Here, if you need anything. So sorry for your losses." Losses, plural. As if my mother's death and my marriage's implosion were comparable griefs. The doorbell rang, startling me. For a moment, my heart leapt. Richard, coming home to explain, to beg forgiveness. But when I opened the door, it was Catherine, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. "I brought breakfast," she said, holding up a paper bag from our favorite bakery, "and reinforcements." Behind her stood Michael and his wife Jennifer, along with my closest friend Lisa. All of them wore expressions of grim determination. "We're here to help you figure out what happens next," Michael said as they filed into my home, the home that suddenly felt like it belonged to a different Eleanor, one who no longer existed. "There's nothing to figure out," I said, leading them to the kitchen. "My mother is gone, and apparently, so is my marriage." "Don't say that," Lisa began, but Catherine cut her off. "No, she's right. After what he did?" Catherine's voice shook with anger. "This isn't a rough patch. This is something else entirely." As they unpacked breakfast pastries and poured fresh coffee, debating what steps I should take next, I found myself staring at the refrigerator door, covered with magnets holding family photos and Maddie's childhood artwork. 23 years of shared history captured in fragments. The vacation to Cape Cod, where Richard had taught Maddie to build sandcastles. Our 20th anniversary trip to Niagara Falls. The holiday party at Richard's firm last December, his arm around my waist as we both smiled for the camera. Had he been seeing her even then? How long had the affair been going on? When had I become so easy to deceive, so convenient to betray? "Eleanor?" Lisa's voice broke through my thoughts. "What do you want to do?" It was such a simple question, yet I realized I had no idea how to answer it. For decades, what I wanted had taken a back seat to what everyone else needed from me. My husband, my daughter, my mother, my students. I had given pieces of myself away so gradually that I wasn't sure what remained. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know who I am without him." The moment the words left my mouth, I hated myself for them, hated the pathetic truth they revealed. Somewhere along the way, I had lost myself in the role of Richard Mitchell's wife. Catherine reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Then that's the first thing we need to find out." Richard finally came home 3 days after the funeral. I was sorting through my mother's belongings, boxes of old photographs, handwritten recipes, and the jewelry she had specifically left for Maddie, when I heard his key in the lock. My hands froze over the cardboard box, a strand of my mother's pearls caught between my fingers. He looked terrible. Unshaven, hair disheveled, wearing the same suit pants he'd had on at the funeral, paired with a wrinkled Ohio State sweatshirt. For a brief, shameful moment, compassion fluttered in my chest. "Ellie," he said, using the nickname he'd given me in college. "We need to talk." I carefully placed the pearls back in their velvet box. "Now you want to talk? After 3 days of silence?" "I needed time to think," he said, setting his keys on the entryway table like this was any ordinary homecoming. "To figure out what I really want." The casual cruelty of those words hit me like a physical blow. While I had been arranging my mother's funeral, discovering my husband's affair, and then enduring public humiliation, Richard had been figuring out what he really wants. "And what conclusion did you reach?" I asked, surprised by the calm in my voice when everything inside me was screaming. Richard sank into the armchair across from me, running his hands through his graying hair. At 54, he was still handsome in that distinguished way that had only improved with age. Unlike me, with my reading glasses and the 15 pounds I'd gained during my mother's illness. "I think we should separate," he said, eyes fixed on the floor. "Formally. I've already spoken with Jack Peterson about representing me." Jack, a colleague of Richard's, someone who had eaten at our dinner table countless times. "You've already spoken to a divorce attorney?" The room seemed to tilt around me. Before even talking to me, I wanted to be prepared. "You know how these things can get messy." "Messy," I repeated, like a spilled drink or a child's art project, not the systematic dismantling of a shared life. "And Vanessa? Where does she fit into this preparedness plan?" At the mention of her name, Richard's expression changed, softened in a way that told me everything. "She's part of the reason I need to do this. But this isn't just about her, Eleanor. We've been drifting apart for years. You must have felt it too." Had we? I searched my memory for signs of this alleged drift. Yes, we'd had fewer date nights since my mother's diagnosis. Yes, intimacy had taken a back seat to caregiving and career demands. But drifting apart? That implied mutual responsibility, mutual neglect. No, Richard, I didn't feel it. I was too busy supporting your career, raising our daughter, and taking care of my dying mother to notice this supposed drift. Anger finally broke through my shock. When exactly was I supposed to have time to drift? Between grading papers and changing Mom's bed sheets at the hospice? He had the decency to look away. "I didn't come here to argue." "What did you come here for? Permission? Absolution?" "I came to discuss logistics. I'll be staying at the Bridgewater temporarily, but I'd like to come by this weekend to collect some things." The Bridgewater, the luxury apartment complex downtown where young professionals and wealthy divorcees lived. How long had he been planning this? "And what about our finances?" I asked, suddenly terrified. My teacher's salary alone wouldn't cover the mortgage on this house. "Have you prepared for that too? I've transferred $10,000 into your personal account for immediate expenses. The joint accounts remain untouched for now. Jack suggested we freeze any major financial decisions until we determine a fair division of assets." He spoke like a lawyer now, all precision and caution. This was the voice he used in the courtroom, not the kitchen. "How considerate," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "And what about Maddie? Have you explained to our daughter why you brought your girlfriend to her grandmother's funeral?" A flash of genuine discomfort crossed his face. "I've tried calling her. She won't answer. Can you blame her? She'll understand eventually, when she sees that this is for the best, that we'll both be happier." "We?" I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't belong in my throat. "You mean you, Richard. You will be happier. Don't pretend this is some mutual journey to self-fulfillment." Richard stood, his jaw tight with frustration. "This isn't productive. I'll email you about coming by for my things." As he turned to leave, something occurred to me. "How old is she?" I asked. He paused, his back to me. "Does it matter?" "Humor me." 34. 18 years younger than him. Only 14 years older than our daughter. The age I had been when I first met Richard at Ohio State. "Is she a lawyer?" I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear him say it. "She's a paralegal, at Harrington and Beck, one of Richard's client firms." "Of course. Does she know?" I asked, unable to stop myself. "Does she know that you'll trade her in two once she hits her 50s and spends 3 years caring for a sick parent instead of focusing on your needs?" He turned, anger flashing across his face. "That's not fair." "No," I agreed, turning back to my mother's belongings. "None of this is." I didn't look up as he left, didn't acknowledge his muttered goodbye. I listened to the door close, then the sound of his BMW starting in the driveway. Only when I was certain he was gone did I allow the tears to come. Inside my mother's jewelry box, I found a handwritten note tucked beneath the pearl necklace. In her shaky handwriting, she'd written, "For Maddie when she gets married, and for Eleanor, remember you are stronger than you know. You're a Wallace before you're a Mitchell." My mother's maiden name, the name I had surrendered so eagerly at 24, believing I was joining my life with someone who would honor the sacrifice. Through my tears, I pulled out my phone and did what I should have done 3 days ago. I called the locksmith. The photograph album was heavy on my lap, its leather cover worn at the edges from years of handling. I'd found it while clearing out space in the spare bedroom closet, making room for the boxes of legal documents my brother Michael had insisted I gather before meeting with my own divorce attorney next week. The first photo made my breath catch. Richard and me on our wedding day, May 1999, outside the small Methodist church where my parents had also married. I was radiant in my simple white dress, dark hair falling in curls around my shoulders. Richard, dashingly handsome in his rented tuxedo, gazed at me with what I had always believed was adoration. "You'll be the first lawyer in your family," my father had said proudly at our rehearsal dinner, already ill with the heart disease that would take him just 2 years later. "Mitchell and Mitchell, attorneys at law," he'd predicted, raising his glass in a toast. But there had never been a Mitchell and Mitchell. There had been Richard Mitchell, attorney at law, and Eleanor Mitchell, the supportive wife who made it possible. I turned the page. Our first apartment near the law school, a cramped one-bedroom with water stains on the ceiling and unreliable heat. I decorated it with thrift store finds and hand-me-downs, creating a cozy home where Richard could study while I taught at a local elementary school, the job I'd taken to support us through his final years of law school. "It's just temporary," Richard would assure me whenever I came home exhausted from managing 30 third graders all day, only to face a stack of lesson plans at night. "Once I'm established, you can go back for your master's like you wanted. We're investing in our future." I believed him. I believed in him. Another page. Richard passing the bar exam. The celebration dinner I'd prepared, saving for weeks to afford the ingredients for his favorite meal: beef Wellington, asparagus with hollandaise, chocolate soufflé. His law school friends toasting his success in our tiny living room, none of them acknowledging that while they'd been studying, I'd been paying our rent. "I couldn't have done it without Ellie," Richard had said that night, his arm around my waist. I had glowed with pride, with purpose. I was part of something bigger than myself. We were building a life together, brick by brick. Then came the photos that made my heart ache the most. Maddie, our miracle baby, born after 2 miscarriages that had nearly broken me. The image of Richard holding her in the hospital, his face a mixture of terror and wonder. He had been a good father then, reading her bedtime stories in funny voices, taking her to the park on Saturday mornings so I could sleep in, teaching her to ride a bike in our driveway. I traced my finger over Maddie's chubby toddler cheeks, remembering the high fever that had sent us rushing to the emergency room when she was 3. I had wanted to stay overnight at the hospital, but my teaching job required me at school the next morning. "Go," Richard had insisted. "I've got this. We'll be fine." And they had been. Richard had taken a rare day off, staying with Maddie in her hospital room, sending me hourly updates and photos of her improving condition. What had happened to that man? The one who had once driven 40 miles in a blizzard to bring me my forgotten lecture notes before an important observation by the school principal. The one who had held my hand through 2 failed pregnancies, assuring me that it didn't matter, that we were enough for each other if that's how our story unfolded. More pages. The small starter home we purchased when Richard joined his first firm. The backyard where I'd planted a vegetable garden that never quite thrived in the clay-heavy Ohio soil, but that Richard had praised anyway. "Best tomatoes I've ever tasted," he'd declared, even though we both knew they were mealy and undersized. The vacation to Florida when Maddie was 10, her first time seeing the ocean. I had been so sunburned I could barely move, but I'd insisted on building sandcastles with her because I knew how much it meant to her. Richard had captured the moment. Me, red as a lobster, laughing as Maddie decorated our lopsided castle with shells. My mother appeared in so many of these photos, helping us move into our current home, standing beside me at my master's degree graduation, the degree I finally earned through night classes when Maddie started elementary school, Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas mornings, birthday celebrations. Mom had never particularly warmed to Richard, though she had always been polite. "He's very ambitious," she would say, neither praise nor criticism, but somewhere uncomfortably in between. After my father died, she had pulled me aside at the funeral reception. "Don't lose yourself in his shadow, Eleanor," she'd warned. "Your father and I were partners. Make sure you're not just Richard's cheerleader." I had been offended then, defensive of the choices I'd made. Now I wondered if she had seen something in Richard that I had been too in love to recognize. The album continued through the years. Maddie's dance recitals and soccer tournaments, school plays and science fairs. Richard was present in fewer and fewer of these images as Maddie grew and his law practice expanded. His absence hadn't seemed remarkable at the time. Someone had to take the photos after all, and Richard was busy providing for our family. I had been so good at making excuses for him. The last photo in the album was from Christmas just 9 months ago. Maddie home from her first semester at college, Richard and I flanking her on either side beneath the tree I had decorated while listening to Bing Crosby. We looked happy. We looked like a family. Had he been seeing Vanessa even then? Had he sat at our Christmas dinner, accepted the carefully chosen watch I'd gifted him, all while planning his escape? I closed the album and rested my hands atop it. 23 years of shared history. 23 years of sacrifices I had made willingly, lovingly, believing we were building something that would last. The woman in those photographs, young, hopeful Eleanor, had given everything to her marriage. She had surrendered dreams, deferred goals, restructured her entire existence around supporting Richard's ambitions and meeting Maddie's needs. That woman deserved better than to be discarded when a younger, less complicated alternative presented herself. That woman deserved to be fought for, appreciated, treasured. I realized with sudden clarity that I was still that woman. Beneath the grief and betrayal, despite the years and disappointments, I remained the person who had loved deeply and given freely. The difference was that now, I needed to direct some of that love and care toward myself. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I carefully returned the album to its shelf before answering. Catherine stood on my porch, a determined expression on her face, and a folder tucked under her arm. "Enough wallowing," she announced, brushing past me into the house. "I've made an appointment with Diana Reynolds." "The divorce attorney?" I followed her to the kitchen, where she was already making herself at home, pulling mugs from the cabinet for coffee. "The shark," Catherine corrected. "The attorney who took Jessica Morris's cheating cardiologist husband for everything he was worth last year. I don't want to take Richard for everything he's worth," I protested weakly. "I just want—" What did I want? Fairness? Justice? The last 23 years back? Catherine's expression softened as she handed me a mug of coffee. "I know you don't, Ellie, but you deserve to start this next chapter with security and dignity. Diana will make sure of that." As we sat at my kitchen table reviewing the financial documents Michael had helped me gather, I thought about that young Eleanor in the photographs. She hadn't known what was coming, couldn't have predicted the betrayal that awaited her, but she had built a foundation, through education, through relationships, through quiet, consistent strength, that would now become my salvation. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll meet with Diana." Catherine squeezed my hand. "Mom would be proud of you." I nodded, feeling something shift inside me, a small awakening, a tentative step toward whatever came next. The faculty lounge fell silent when I entered, coffee mug in hand. It was my first day back at Riverside High School after a 2-week absence. 1 week for bereavement, another for what Principal Hernandez had discreetly called personal matters. I had told her the bare minimum, but in a school of 800 students and 60 teachers, news traveled with relentless efficiency. "Eleanor!" Janet from the science department recovered first, her voice overly bright. "It's so good to have you back. We missed you at the department meeting yesterday." "Thank you," I said, making my way to the coffee pot. "It's good to be back. Normal. I could do normal. I could be Eleanor Mitchell, AP English teacher, colleague, professional. Not Eleanor Mitchell, abandoned wife, public spectacle." I poured my coffee and turned to find most of my colleagues suddenly engrossed in their phones or lesson plans. Only Marcus Williams, the history teacher whose classroom was across from mine, met my eyes with genuine warmth. "My seniors were asking about you," he said. "They were worried their college application essays would never recover without your feedback." I managed a small smile. "Well, we can't have that on my conscience." The morning bell rang. saving me from further awkward exchanges. As teachers gathered their materials and filed out, I felt a hand on my arm. Lauren Chen, my closest friend at Riverside, had stayed behind. "Lunch in my room today?" she asked quietly. "I've got that lasagna you like from Vincenzo's." "That would be nice," I said, grateful for the offer of privacy. The morning passed in a blur of lesson plans and student questions. Literature had always been my refuge, and I lost myself in guiding discussions about Hemingway's spare prose and Fitzgerald's complex symbolism. For 3 blessed hours, I was just Ms. Mitchell, respected educator, not the woman whose husband had humiliated her at her mother's funeral. Until 4th period. I was writing a quote from "Their Eyes Were Watching God" on the whiteboard when I heard the whispers. Turning, I found several students huddled over a cell phone, expressions caught between shock and uncomfortable fascination. "Is there something you'd like to share with the class, Tyler?" I asked, using my teacher voice, firm but not confrontational. Tyler Simmons, a usually respectful senior, flushed red and quickly put his phone away. "No, Ms. Mitchell, sorry. I should have left it there. Should have returned to Hurston's powerful imagery and the discussion I had carefully planned." But something in Tyler's expression, pity mixed with morbid curiosity, made my stomach clench. "What was on your phone?" I asked, my voice steady despite the dread building inside me. "Nothing, Ms. Mitchell, just, Instagram stuff." The girl beside him, Emma Barrett, shot him a warning look. "Tyler," I said, setting down my marker. "The truth, please." The room had gone painfully silent. 23 seniors stared at their desks, the floor, the windows, anywhere but at me. Finally, a voice from the back of the room. Devin Washington, one of my most thoughtful students. "Ms. Mitchell, you might want to check Facebook. Mr. Mitchell posted something this morning." The classroom seemed to tilt around me. "Thank you for your honesty, Devin. Everyone, please read pages 86 through 102 while I step out for a moment." Somehow, I made it to the empty teacher's workroom down the hall before pulling out my phone. I hadn't checked social media in days, avoiding the well-meaning but painful messages of condolence. Richard's post was at the top of my feed, already accumulating likes and comments. A photo of him and Vanessa, her hand extended toward the camera to display a diamond ring that I recognized with sickening clarity. His grandmother's Art Deco engagement ring, the one he had promised would go to Maddie someday. The caption beneath the photo: "Sometimes life gives you a second chance at happiness." Vanessa and I are thrilled to announce our engagement and looking forward to our new beginning. Never too late. Love wins. Posted 37 minutes ago. While I was teaching Hemingway to sophomores, Richard was announcing his engagement to the woman he had brought to my mother's funeral. 3 weeks after that funeral, less than 2 weeks after asking me for a separation. The comments were worse than the post itself. "Congratulations. So happy for you both." From his law partner, who had been a groomsman in our wedding. "About time you found happiness, Rich." From his college roommate, who had spent countless holidays at our dinner table. "Wishing you both all the joy in the world." From our neighbors, the Johnsons, who had brought us a casserole when Maddie was born. And then, worst of all, a comment from Vanessa herself. "I never thought I'd find my soulmate at this stage of life. So blessed to be building a future with this amazing man. Second chances, soulmate, future." As if the 23 years I had given Richard were nothing but an unfortunate detour on his path to true happiness. I sank into a chair, my phone clutched in my trembling hand. Through the workroom's small window, I could see life continuing normally in the school hallway. Students at their lockers, teachers monitoring passing period, the everyday rhythm of a world that hadn't just imploded. A soft knock at the door made me look up. Lauren stood there, concern etched on her face. "I saw your class reading quietly and thought..." Her words trailed off as she saw my expression. "What happened?" I wordlessly handed her my phone. Lauren scrolled through the post and comments, her face darkening with each swipe. "That absolute bastard," she finally said, her voice tight with fury. "Eleanor, there are no words." "Apparently there are," I said, a strange calm settling over me. "Soulmate. Second chances. Never too late. This is cruel. It's deliberately cruel. After everything. And public," I added, my mind suddenly crystallizing around this fact. He could have told me privately, called Maddie first. Instead, he did it like this. knowing I would see it, knowing everyone would see it. Lauren knelt beside my chair, taking my hands in hers. "What do you need right now? Should I cover your next class? Do you want me to drive you home?" The bell rang, signaling the end of 4th period. In minutes, my 5th period AP literature students would be filing into my classroom, expecting their teacher to guide them through the complex moral landscape of Dostoevsky. I stood, smoothing my skirt with hands that had stopped shaking. "I need to teach my class." "Eleanor?" "No," I said firmly. "I will not let Richard Mitchell determine one more minute of my day. I have 22 seniors who need to understand why Raskolnikov believes himself above conventional morality. That matters more than my ex-husband's Instagram announcement." Lauren searched my face. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "But I would like to take you up on that lasagna at lunch." I made it through 5th period, and then 6th. I discussed literature and grammar, collected assignments, answered questions about college applications. If my students noticed anything amiss, they were kind enough not to mention it. During lunch, secluded in Lauren's classroom with the door closed, I finally allowed myself to break down. The lasagna sat untouched, as Lauren held me through racking sobs that seemed torn from the deepest part of me. "What am I going to do?" I whispered when the tears finally subsided. "Everyone knows. Everyone has seen. You're going to hold your head high," Lauren said fiercely. "You're going to show every person in this school, in this town, what dignity looks like. I don't feel very dignified right now. That's because you're a human being with a heart, not an emotionless robot like your ex." Lauren handed me a tissue. "And you're going to let your friends help you, starting tonight." "Tonight? Girls' night. My place. Catherine and Lisa are already on board. We're ordering Thai food and opening wine at 7. No excuses. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of something other than grief and humiliation. Not happiness, that seemed impossibly distant, but perhaps its distant cousin, gratitude. "Okay," I agreed. "Thai food and wine. And one more thing," Lauren said, her expression suddenly serious. "You need to talk to Maddie, before she sees this." I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my daughter, 7 text messages. Too late. I was halfway through composing a response when my phone rang again. Maddie's face flashed on the screen. "Honey?" I began. "I'm coming home," Maddie said, her voice thick with tears and fury. "I've already talked to my professors. I'm packing right now." "Maddie, you don't need to do that. Your midterms." "Mom," she interrupted. "I'm coming home. Tonight. And tomorrow we're going to figure out how to destroy him." In that moment, hearing the protective rage in my daughter's voice, something shifted inside me. The shame and humiliation began to recede, replaced by a cold, clear purpose. Richard had chosen to make this public. He had chosen to turn our private pain into a spectacle. Very well. If it was a spectacle he wanted, then perhaps it was time to give him one, just not the kind he was expecting. The antique mantel clock that had belonged to Richard's grandfather, the one he had insisted we display in our living room despite its persistent, irritating tick, struck midnight as Maddie finally fell asleep on the couch. Wine glasses and empty takeout containers littered the coffee table, evidence of the impromptu strategy session that had consumed our evening once she'd arrived home from campus. "We should post something," she had insisted, eyes blazing with the righteous indignation of youth. "Fight fire with fire." "No," Catherine had countered. "Take the high road. Everyone already knows he's the villain here." The debate had continued for hours, fueled by Thai food and too much Pinot Noir, until exhaustion had claimed them one by one. Now Catherine dozed in the armchair. Lisa had retreated to the guest room, and only I remained awake, listening to the grandfather clock count out the seconds of my new reality. I moved quietly through the living room, collecting glasses and containers, straightening throw pillows, tucking a blanket around my sleeping daughter. The familiar rhythm of caretaking was soothing, even now, especially now. In the kitchen, I washed each wine glass by hand, though the dishwasher stood empty and waiting. I needed the meditative quality of the task, the warm water and the repetitive motion grounding me in a moment that belonged solely to me. When the kitchen was spotless, I found myself drawn to Richard's home office, a room I had rarely entered in recent years, respecting his need for a private workspace. The door creaked softly as I pushed it open. Moonlight spilled through the uncurtained window, illuminating the space Richard had claimed as exclusively his. The heavy mahogany desk I had helped him select for his 40th birthday, the leather chair that had cost more than my first car, the walls lined with law books and framed diplomas and bar association awards. I flicked on the desk lamp and sat in his chair, running my fingers along the smooth desktop. This room represented everything Richard valued: prestige, achievement, control. I had never felt comfortable here. My gaze fell on the desk drawer where Richard kept important documents. On a whim, I tried it. Locked, of course. But I knew where he kept the key. Inside the hollowed-out legal volume on the third shelf, a hiding place he thought terribly clever and I had always found rather obvious. The key fit smoothly in the lock. Inside the drawer, I found the expected items: passports, property deeds, insurance policies, our wills, drafted when Maddie was born and never updated. A folder labeled Financial Planning contained statements from accounts I recognized and several I didn't. I was about to close the drawer when a small leather-bound book caught my attention. Richard's personal journal, the one he had started keeping after his father died 5 years ago, claiming it helped him process emotions he struggled to express aloud. I hesitated. In 23 years of marriage, I had never invaded Richard's privacy this way. Even after discovering the affair, I had stumbled upon evidence accidentally, not sought it out deliberately. Reading his journal felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But then I remembered his Facebook post, the public announcement of his engagement before our divorce was even finalized, the casual cruelty of letting me discover it through my students. I opened the journal. The early entries were exactly what I'd expected: reflections on cases, frustrations with colleagues, occasional mentions of family events. Richard writing as he thought others expected a successful man to write: measured, rational, slightly detached. Then, about 8 months ago, the tone changed. Met with Harrington and Beck today about the class action suit. Their new paralegal, Vanessa, is exceptionally sharp. Reminds me of what ambition looks like: hungry, focused, unapologetic. When did I stop feeling that way? 6 weeks later, dinner with Vanessa after the deposition ran late. Just professional, of course, but refreshing to talk with someone who actually cares about case law and strategy instead of school board politics and Eleanor's mother's latest health crisis. I flinched at seeing my name, at the dismissive reference to my mother's cancer as a health crisis, as if I had been discussing a sprained ankle or seasonal allergies. The entries became more frequent, more personal. Vanessa says I seem trapped, asked if this is really the life I wanted or the life I settled for. Can't stop thinking about it. When did I last do something because I wanted to, not because it was expected? Eleanor doesn't really see me anymore, just sees the provider, the husband, the role I play in her life. With Vanessa, I'm actually seen. Each word was a small betrayal, a rewriting of our shared history. I wasn't reading about my marriage. I was reading about a stranger's perception of a relationship that bore only passing resemblance to the one I had lived. Then, 6 weeks ago, it happened, after the conference in Cincinnati. Not planned, but not accidental either. Should feel guilty. Don't. Cincinnati. The 3-day conference when I had been sitting vigil at my mother's hospice bed, calling Richard each night with updates on her declining condition. While I had been holding my mother's hand as she slipped away, Richard had been holding Vanessa. The next entries detailed the affair's progression with clinical precision, interspersed with increasingly bitter reflections on our marriage. According to Richard's journal, I had become controlling, suffocating, focused only on my mother and my classroom. I had lost my spark, my passion. I had changed. Eleanor would never understand this feeling. She's too comfortable in her routines, too risk-averse. Vanessa challenges me, pushes me to be more, to want more, as if the life we had built together, the family we had created, the love I had given him for 23 years was somehow insufficient. Not enough. Never enough. The final entry was dated the day before my mother's funeral. Told Eleanor about Vanessa today. Partial truth only. She forgave me as expected, too willing to preserve the status quo. Vanessa says it's cruel to string her along when I've already made my decision. She's right. Tomorrow at the funeral, everyone will know. A clean break is kinder in the end. Once it's public, there's no going back. Eleanor will be hurt initially, but she'll adapt. She always does. I closed the journal, my hands trembling not with sorrow, but with a cold, clarifying rage. Richard had planned it. the public humiliation, the calculated cruelty. It hadn't been a moment of poor judgment or insensitivity. It had been a deliberate strategy to force my hand, to ensure I couldn't attempt reconciliation, to make a clean break on his terms. And now he was doing it again with his engagement announcement. Another public spectacle designed to control the narrative, to cast himself as the romantic hero pursuing true love, while I remained cast as the convenient obstacle. The stuffy wife, too, set in her ways to appreciate his brilliance. I returned the journal to the drawer but left it unlocked. Let him wonder what I had found, what I now knew. Standing in the center of his office, I surveyed the space with new eyes. The carefully curated shrine to Richard Mitchell, legal genius. The domain where he had plotted the dismantling of our life together, justifying his betrayal as some sort of noble self-actualization. My gaze fell on the photograph hanging behind his desk, Richard shaking hands with the governor at a fundraiser 3 years ago. His pride and joy, this visual evidence of his proximity to power. I took it off the wall, removed it from its frame, and carried it to the kitchen. In the junk drawer, I found a red marker. Across Richard's smiling face, I wrote a single word, liar. I returned the defaced photo to its frame and hung it exactly as it had been. He might not notice it immediately, but when he did, a small act of rebellion. Childish, perhaps, but deeply satisfying. Back in the living room, I found Maddie still asleep on the couch, her face finally peaceful after hours of tear-streaked anger. My beautiful, fierce daughter, so ready to go to war for me, to demand justice, to fight fire with fire. But fire wasn't what I needed now. Fire was Richard's weapon. Flashy, destructive, attention-seeking. I needed something cooler, more precise, more powerful. I thought of the journal entries, of how thoroughly Richard had convinced himself that I was the problem, the controlling wife, the comfortable, predictable Eleanor who would forgive and adapt because that's what she always did. Well, not anymore. Richard believed he knew me, believed he could predict my every reaction. But the truth was, he had stopped seeing the real me years ago, if he ever truly had. He had created a convenient fiction. Eleanor the accommodating, Eleanor the predictable, Eleanor the backdrop to his personal drama. He didn't know that when I was 19, before we met, I had backpacked alone through Europe for a summer, working odd jobs to fund my travels. He didn't know that I had once been offered a prestigious teaching position in Boston, but turned it down because his career was in Columbus. He didn't know that I had kept a separate savings account since my father died, not because I didn't trust Richard, but because my father had taught me every woman should have her own financial safety net. Richard thought he knew exactly who I was and what I would do next, and that, I suddenly realized, was his vulnerability, his blind spot, his weakness. For the first time since seeing him walk into the cemetery with Vanessa, I felt something other than pain and humiliation. I felt the cool, clear stirring of purpose. If Richard wanted to make our private life public, I wouldn't stop him. But I also wouldn't play the role he had assigned me, the wronged wife, bitter and broken. No, I would write my own part in this drama. And Richard Mitchell, who thought he knew everything about me, would never see me coming. Diana Reynolds' office overlooked the Scioto River, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of downtown Columbus that seemed designed to intimidate. Diana herself, tall, impeccably dressed, with a silver bob that caught the light like a blade, enhanced the effect. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said, extending her hand across the massive glass desk. "Or do you prefer Ms. Wallace?" "Eleanor is fine," I replied, taking the offered seat. "Thank you for seeing me on short notice. Catherine spoke very persuasively on your behalf." Diana's smile was brief, but genuine, "and I make time for cases that interest me. Yours qualifies." I had expected to feel intimidated in this sleek office, with its clear view of the power structures of Columbus. Instead, I felt oddly at home. There was something comforting about Diana's no-nonsense efficiency, her clear-eyed assessment of my situation. "Before we begin," Diana said, "I should warn you that I've had professional interactions with your husband in the past. Nothing that constitutes a conflict of interest, but we've opposed each other in court." "And?" I prompted when she paused. A flicker of amusement crossed her face, and I found him to be precisely the type of male attorney who underestimates female opponents, a trait I've found quite useful over the years. For the first time in weeks, I felt myself smile. A real smile. Not the polite mask I'd worn for my students, or the brave face I'd put on for Maddie. Now, Diana continued, opening a leather portfolio, Catherine mentioned you've gathered financial documents. Let's start there, and then we can discuss your priorities for the divorce settlement. For the next hour, we reviewed account statements, property deeds, tax returns, and retirement portfolios. I explained what I knew about our finances, which was considerable, despite Richard's apparent belief that I paid little attention to such matters. The house is worth approximately $750,000 with about $250,000 left on the mortgage, I noted, pointing to the relevant documents. We have approximately $420,000 in retirement accounts, though Richard's law firm partnership has an additional retirement structure that I'm less familiar with. Diana made notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. And you said there are accounts you don't have access to. 3 that I know of, I confirmed. I found statements in his desk for an investment account with Meridian Partners, a savings account with First National, and something called Mitchell Holdings LLC. Diana's eyebrows rose slightly. Mitchell Holdings? Yes. I don't know much about it, except that it was established about 4 years ago. There was correspondence about a property purchase in Hocking Hills. The cabin, I explained when Diana looked puzzled. Richard always talked about buying a cabin for weekend getaways, but I thought it was just talk. Apparently not. Diana made another note. We'll need discovery on all of these. Ohio is an equitable distribution state, not a community property state. That means marital assets are divided fairly, not necessarily equally. Given the circumstances, especially the very public nature of Mr. Mitchell's infidelity, we have solid ground to argue for a favorable distribution. I nodded, thinking of the journal hidden in my purse. I hadn't mentioned it yet, uncertain of its legal value or admissibility. There's something else, I said finally. Richard's grandmother's engagement ring, a family heirloom. He's given it to her. Vanessa, Diana supplied, her voice neutral. Yes, it was understood that it would go to Maddie eventually. It's been in his family for generations. Diana's expression softened slightly. Sentimental items can be complicated in divorce proceedings, especially family heirlooms. We can certainly include it in our demands, but I don't want it back, I interrupted. I just want you to know who we're dealing with. The kind of man who would take a family heirloom meant for his daughter and give it to his mistress 3 weeks after his mother-in-law's funeral. Diana studied me for a moment, then nodded. Understood. Is there anything else I should know? Anything that might surprise me when Richard's attorney presents their case? I hesitated, then opened my purse and removed Richard's journal. This might be relevant. I found it in his desk drawer. It documents the affair and his deliberate decision to humiliate me at my mother's funeral. Diana took the journal, her expression unreadable. May I? At my nod, she opened it and read silently, flipping through the pages with methodical precision. When she finished, she closed it carefully and looked up at me. This is potentially very useful, though there are privacy concerns with how it was obtained. I'll need to consider the best approach. She tapped her finger thoughtfully on the journal's cover. But beyond its potential legal value, I hope it provided you with some clarity. It did, I admitted. Not the kind I wanted, but the kind I needed. Diana nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. Now, let's discuss your priorities. What matters most to you in this settlement? The house? Financial security? Protecting Maddie? The question caught me off guard. In the weeks since Richard's betrayal, I had been so focused on survival, on putting one foot in front of the other, that I hadn't allowed myself to think about what I actually wanted. I need financial stability, I began slowly. I've been teaching for 20 years, but my salary alone isn't enough for the mortgage. And Maddie still has 3 years of college. Richard promised to cover that. Those are practical concerns, Diana acknowledged. Important ones. But I'm asking about your priorities. What would make you feel that justice has been served? Justice. Such a simple word for such a complex concept. What would justice look like in this situation? What could possibly balance the scales after what Richard had done? I started, then stopped, reorganizing my thoughts. I don't want revenge. I want recognition. I helped build Richard's career. I supported his ambitions while deferring my own. I was a partner in everything but name, and he discarded me like I was nothing. Worse, like I was an obstacle to his happiness. I want that contribution acknowledged." Diana's expression remained neutral, but I saw approval in her eyes. That's a perspective I can work with. "Now, there's one more thing we should discuss." She pulled a folder from her desk drawer. "Your sister mentioned you might have interest in returning to school." I blinked, surprised. Catherine and I had discussed this only once, a late-night conversation fueled by wine and what-ifs. "I've thought about pursuing a PhD in literature," I admitted. "It's something I wanted to do before life took a different turn, but that's not a priority right now." "It should be," Diana said firmly. "Educational pursuits are viewed favorably in spousal support determinations, especially for someone who deferred their career advancement to support their spouse. If that's genuinely something you want, we should include it in our settlement strategy." The thought caught me off guard. The possibility that something positive, something that was purely for me, could emerge from this wreckage. "I'll think about it," I promised. "Do that," Diana said, closing her portfolio. "Now, let's talk next steps. I'll draft a proposed settlement for review, but in the meantime, I have some homework for you." She handed me a business card. "This is James Turner, forensic accountant. He's very good at finding assets people think they've hidden. I'd like him to review all your financial information." I took the card, a plan beginning to form in my mind. "Diana, there's something else I should tell you. Something that might help Mr. Turner's investigation." I explained about my separate savings account, the one my father had advised me to maintain. "I've been transferring small amounts regularly since we got married. Never enough to impact our lifestyle, just a personal safety net. It's accumulated to about $127,000 over the years." For the first time in our meeting, Diana looked genuinely surprised. "Does Richard know about this account?" "No. It's in my maiden name, at a bank we don't otherwise use. I never saw it as being secretive, just prudent, like having insurance." A slow smile spread across Diana's face. "Eleanor, I think you and I are going to work very well together." After leaving Diana's office, I didn't go home immediately. Instead, I drove to Ohio State University's campus, parking in a visitor spot near the English department. I had no appointment, no concrete plan, just an impulse I couldn't ignore. The department chair, Dr. Abigail Chen, had been a teaching mentor early in my career. We still occasionally met at educational conferences, but it had been years since I'd visited her on campus. Her assistant seemed surprised when I asked if Dr. Chen might have a few minutes to see me, but after a quick phone call, I was ushered into her office. "Eleanor," Abigail rose from behind her desk, concern evident on her face. "I was so sorry to hear about your mother. And then, well, people talk." "They certainly do," I agreed, accepting her hug. "Thank you for seeing me without an appointment." "Of course. What can I do for you?" I took a deep breath. "I'm considering applying to your doctoral program, possibly for next fall, though I realize that might be ambitious given the timeline." Abigail's expression shifted from concern to interest. "It's not too ambitious at all. You've been an exceptional educator for years, and your master's thesis on gender dynamics in modernist literature was genuinely innovative. We would be fortunate to have you." The ease of her acceptance caught me off guard. I had expected hurdles, concerns about my age or the gap since my last academic pursuit. "I'm 52, I said, feeling compelled to acknowledge the obvious. "Most of your doctoral candidates are probably half my age." Abigail waved this away. "The average age of our doctoral students is 31, and we have several in their 40s and 50s. Life experience is an asset in literary analysis, Eleanor, not a liability." As she pulled up information about the application process on her computer, I felt a flutter of excitement, the first purely positive emotion I had experienced in weeks. This wasn't about Richard or his betrayal. This was about me, about the path I had set aside but never forgotten. "The application deadline for fall admission is January 15th, Abigail explained, printing out materials for me. "You'll need letters of recommendation, a writing sample, and a statement of purpose. I'd be happy to review drafts of your materials before you submit." "Thank you," I said, genuinely moved by her support. "I'm not entirely sure this is the right time with everything else going on, but if I may," Abigail interrupted gently, "there is rarely a perfect time for significant change. The question isn't whether circumstances are ideal. They seldom are. The question is whether this change would move you toward becoming more fully yourself, more fully myself." The phrase resonated, echoing the awakening I had felt in Richard's office, reading his dismissive characterization of me. He thought he knew who Eleanor Mitchell was. Comfortable, predictable, risk-averse. But he had never really seen me. Perhaps after 23 years of being Richard Mitchell's wife, it was time I rediscovered Eleanor Wallace. I'll start on the application this weekend, I decided. Driving home, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The future still held enormous uncertainty. Divorce proceedings, financial reconfiguration, a new professional direction. But for the first time, that uncertainty felt like possibility rather than threat. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked at the curb. A woman leaned against it, straightening when she saw me arrive. Even from a distance, I recognized her. Vanessa. She wore a cream-colored blazer over designer jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. The diamond on her left hand, Richard's grandmother's ring, caught the afternoon sunlight. I considered driving away, avoiding this confrontation entirely, but something in me rebelled against the idea of retreating from my own home, my own driveway, because this woman had appeared uninvited. I parked and got out of my car, purse and portfolio from Diana's office clutched in my arms like a shield. "Mrs. Mitchell," Vanessa said as I approached, her voice carefully neutral. "I was hoping we could talk." "Ms." I raised my eyebrows, realizing I didn't know her last name despite her central role in the implosion of my marriage. "Adams. Vanessa Adams." "Ms. Adams," I acknowledged. "This isn't a good time." "In fact, there will never be a good time for whatever conversation you think we need to have." She took a step toward me, her expression earnest. "I understand you're angry." "No," I interrupted, surprising us both with my calm certainty. "You don't understand anything about me or what I'm feeling, and I have no interest in helping you understand." Richard thought it might be better if I explained. The mention of his name ignited something in me. "Richard sent you here? To my home? To do what, exactly? Make me understand how special your connection is? Help me see why my 23 years of marriage had to end for your second chance at happiness?" Vanessa had the grace to look uncomfortable. "He's worried about how this will affect Maddie. He wants her to know this isn't about her, that he still loves her. Then he should talk to his daughter himself, not send his fiancée." I spat the last word. "And certainly not ambush me in my driveway." "I didn't mean to ambush you. I just thought, woman to woman." "Stop," I said, raising my hand. "There is no woman-to-woman conversation to be had here. You're sleeping with my husband, wearing a ring meant for my daughter, and standing in my driveway because he doesn't have the courage to face me himself. We have nothing to discuss." I moved past her toward my front door, keys already in hand. "He says you've frozen the joint accounts," Vanessa called after me, "that you're being vindictive." I turned slowly, taking in her expensive clothes, her perfect manicure, the entitled tilt of her chin. She was young, yes, but not naive, not innocent. "Ms. Adams, everything I've done has been on the advice of my attorney. If Richard has concerns about access to marital assets during divorce proceedings, his lawyer can contact mine." I smiled thinly. "Diana Reynolds. I believe he's familiar with her work." The flash of recognition and worry in Vanessa's eyes was deeply satisfying. "Now," I continued, "I'm going to go into my home. You're going to leave my property, and if either of you approaches me outside proper legal channels again, my attorney will file for a restraining order. Is that clear enough for you to explain to Richard, woman to woman?" Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked into my house, closing the door firmly behind me. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a moment, seemingly uncertain, before returning to her car and driving away. Only then did I allow myself to lean against the door, heart pounding, but not from fear or distress, from a strange, fierce exhilaration. Richard had sent Vanessa to intimidate me, to make me feel small and replaceable. Instead, he had revealed his own weakness, his reluctance to confront me directly now that I was no longer playing by his rules. He didn't know about Diana Reynolds. He didn't know about the journal now in her possession. He didn't know about my separate savings or my plans for doctoral study. He thought he was dealing with the Eleanor he had invented in his mind. Predictable, accommodating, easily manipulated. His mistake. The Riverside High School Fall Fundraiser had been a highlight of Columbus's social calendar for decades. An evening of dinner, dancing, and silent auction bidding that drew attendance from well beyond the school community. As chair of the English department, I was expected to attend. In previous years, Richard had accompanied me, networking with potential clients while I coordinated student presentations and managed volunteer schedules. This year would be different. "Are you sure about this?" Catherine asked, zipping up the back of my dress, a deep emerald silk that I had purchased that afternoon at a boutique downtown. "It's only been 6 weeks since everything. 6 weeks since my mother's funeral. 6 weeks since Richard's public betrayal. 5 weeks since his engagement announcement. A lifetime compressed into a handful of days." "I'm sure," I said, turning to examine my reflection. The dress was unlike anything in my usual wardrobe. Sleek, sophisticated, with a neckline just low enough to be noticeable without being inappropriate for a school function. "The entire faculty will be there. If I don't show up, it looks like I'm hiding. And are we just ignoring the fact that Richard always attends this event? That half his law firm buys tables every year because you've spent 2 decades cultivating those relationships for him?" I applied another coat of mascara, considering her question. "I'm not ignoring it. I'm counting on it." Catherine's eyebrows shot up. "Eleanor Wallace Mitchell, what are you planning?" "Nothing dramatic," I assured her, though the smile that curved my lips suggested otherwise. "Just making an appearance at an event that's important to my professional community. Being visible, present. With Marcus Williams as your +1. I shrugged, trying for nonchalance but not quite achieving it. He asked if I had an escort for the evening. I said no. He offered. It seemed practical. The truth was more complicated. Marcus, divorced himself 5 years earlier, had been a supportive colleague throughout the past difficult weeks. Our classrooms shared a wall, and he had taken to leaving coffee on my desk on mornings when I looked particularly exhausted. Last week, he had asked me to dinner, as friends, or whatever feels comfortable. I had declined, explaining that I wasn't ready to date. "This isn't a date," I had clarified when he then asked about the fundraiser. "It's 2 colleagues attending a work function." "Of course," he had agreed, though the warmth in his eyes suggested he wouldn't mind if it evolved into something more. "Just colleagues." Now, sliding gold earrings into place, another new purchase. I caught Catherine's knowing look in the mirror. "What?" I demanded. "Nothing," she said innocently. "Just noticing that for just colleagues, you've spent an unusual amount on new clothes and a trip to the salon." I touched my hair self-consciously. The stylist had suggested taking several inches off my usual shoulder-length cut, creating a sleek bob that framed my face and highlighted cheekbones I had forgotten I possessed. "This isn't about Marcus," I insisted. "Or Richard. It's about me deciding not to disappear from my own life just because my marriage has imploded." Catherine's expression softened. "I know, and I'm proud of you for it." She squeezed my shoulders. "You look beautiful, Ellie. Truly." The doorbell rang, signaling Marcus's arrival. Catherine grinned. Showtime. Marcus was equally transformed from his usual appearance. Khakis and button-downs exchanged for a well-tailored navy suit that set off his salt and pepper hair. His appreciative whistle when I descended the stairs made me blush despite myself. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, offering his arm. "You are going to be the talk of the evening." "That's what I'm afraid of," I admitted, as Catherine helped me into my coat. Marcus's expression grew serious. "If it becomes too much, say the word, and we'll leave. No questions asked." His consideration nearly undid the careful composure I had constructed all afternoon. "Thank you." Catherine saw us to the door. "Have fun," she said, with a meaningful look that suggested fun was the minimum acceptable outcome. "I'll be here when you get back, ready for full details." The drive to the hotel where the fundraiser was being held passed in comfortable conversation about school matters, the upcoming accreditation visit, the student newspaper controversy, the eternal battle for budget increases. Nothing personal, nothing pressured. By the time we arrived, my nerves had settled into a manageable flutter. The hotel ballroom was elegantly decorated in the school colors, tables arranged around a central dance floor, a stage set up for the student jazz band that would perform later. Faculty members greeted me warmly, some with sympathetic looks, others with studied normality that I appreciated more. I slipped easily into my role as department chair, checking on the student poetry display, conferring with the principal about the evening's schedule, guiding Marcus through introductions to colleagues he didn't know well. And then I saw them. Richard and Vanessa stood near the bar, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back, as she laughed at something said by the couple they were speaking with, the Hendersons, longtime clients of Richard's firm. Vanessa wore a sleek black dress that emphasized her youth and slenderness, her dark hair cascading down her back. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt, sounds becoming distant and muffled as blood rushed in my ears. Months of visualizing this moment hadn't prepared me for the reality of seeing them together in a social setting, playing the role of happy couple in the world Richard and I had built together. "Eleanor?" Marcus's voice broke through the fog. "We can still leave." I drew a steadying breath, then straightened my shoulders. "No, this is my event, at my school. I'm exactly where I belong." His hand found the small of my back, a mirror of Richard's gesture with Vanessa, but comforting rather than possessive. "Then let's get a drink." We made our way to the bar on the opposite side of the room from Richard and Vanessa. I ordered a gin and tonic, sipping it slowly as Marcus and I joined a group of science department faculty. Gradually, the initial shock faded. I found myself genuinely laughing at a colleague's story, accepting compliments on my dress with growing confidence. "Eleanor," the familiar voice behind me sent a jolt down my spine. I turned slowly, drink in hand, to face Richard. "Richard, I'm surprised to see you here." A lie, of course. I had known he would attend, had counted on it. "I've been coming to this event for 20 years, he said, as if I might have forgotten. "The firm always buys 2 tables. How generous," I murmured. "Your ongoing support of public education is noted." Richard's gaze shifted to Marcus, who had positioned himself slightly behind me, a silent but unmistakable presence. "Marcus, I didn't realize you and Eleanor were colleagues," I supplied smoothly. "As we have been for 15 years. A muscle twitched in Richard's jaw. "Of course." Across the room, I saw Vanessa watching our interaction, her expression unreadable. The Hendersons beside her were making less effort to disguise their interest in the unfolding drama. "How are you, Eleanor?" Richard asked, his voice dropping into the concerned register he used with anxious clients. "Maddie mentioned you're considering some sort of academic program?" Of course. Maddie had finally agreed to meet with Richard for lunch last week. Not for his sake, she had assured me, but to make her own feelings clear. Apparently, the conversation had included my plans. "A PhD in American literature," I confirmed. "I've already submitted my application to Ohio State." Surprise flickered across Richard's face. "That seems ambitious at your stage of life." The condescension in his tone might have crushed me 6 weeks ago. Now it merely amused me. On the contrary, the department chair feels my life experience will be an asset, and I've always regretted not pursuing doctoral studies when I had the chance. "You never mentioned this before." "Didn't I?" I tilted my head thoughtfully. "How strange. I could have sworn it came up during those long conversations we had about your career goals, your professional aspirations, your dreams for the future." Richard's expression hardened. "I see Diana Reynolds has been coaching you well." "Diana has been a tremendous support," I agreed, "as have so many people. It's remarkable how a crisis reveals who your true friends are." I let my gaze drift meaningfully around the room, where Richard could not have failed to notice the warm greetings I had received from colleagues, parents, and community members all evening, and the decidedly cooler reception he and Vanessa had encountered. Before Richard could respond, Principal Hernandez approached, touching my arm lightly. "Eleanor, we're ready for the department presentations whenever you are." "Thank you, Maria. I'll be right there." I turned back to Richard with a polite smile. "Duty calls. Enjoy your evening." As Marcus and I followed Principal Hernandez toward the stage, I felt Richard's eyes on my back. I wondered what he saw. The familiar Eleanor, dependable and predictable, or someone new emerging from the wreckage he had created. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of presentations, conversations, and even a few dances. Marcus proved to be an excellent partner, leading me confidently around the floor during a jazz standard performed by the student band. I caught glimpses of Richard and Vanessa throughout the night, he watching me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret, she increasingly tense as the evening progressed. It was nearly 11 when Marcus and I decided to leave, collecting our coats from the hotel coat check. "Successful evening?" he asked, as we stepped into the cool October night. "Very," I agreed. "Thank you for coming with me. It made things easier." "My pleasure. Truly." He hesitated, then added, "I hope this isn't overstepping, but you seem different tonight. More present somehow." I considered his observation as we walked to his car. I think I was. For a long time I've been defining myself in relation to other people. Richard's wife, Maddie's mother, my mother's daughter, my student's teacher. Tonight felt like being just Eleanor. Well, just Eleanor is pretty impressive, Marcus said, opening the car door for me. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I caught sight of Richard and Vanessa emerging from the hotel, her expression stormy as she gestured emphatically while speaking. Richard stood stiffly, shoulders hunched defensively. I should have felt vindication seeing their obvious discord. Instead, I felt something unexpected, pity. Not for Richard. He had made his choices with clear-eyed calculation. But for Vanessa. She was young, ambitious, probably believing she had found a powerful mentor and partner in Richard. She didn't yet understand that she was simply the newest supporting character in the Richard Mitchell show, expected to play her assigned role without complaint. I had spent 23 years in that production. Now I was writing my own script. When Marcus dropped me off, he walked me to the door but made no move to come inside, despite Catherine's transparent absence from the front window where she had promised to wait. "Thank you again for tonight," I said, genuinely grateful. "It meant a lot to have you there. Anytime." He hesitated, then leaned in to kiss my cheek softly. "Good night, Eleanor." I watched him drive away before entering the house, where Catherine immediately pounced, demanding details. I recounted the evening as she made tea, describing Richard's reaction to my PhD plans with perhaps a touch more satisfaction than was strictly dignified. "So what's next?" Catherine asked when I had finished. "In this master plan of yours?" I sipped my tea thoughtfully. "Tomorrow I meet with James Turner, Diana's forensic accountant. Then on Monday, I have an appointment with a realtor to discuss putting the house on the market." "You're selling?" Catherine's surprise was understandable. "I had always loved this house, had spent years making it a home. I can't afford the mortgage on my teacher's salary, even with spousal support. And honestly, I don't want to stay here. Too many memories." "Where will you go?" "I'm not sure yet. Somewhere smaller, closer to campus maybe, once I know if I'm accepted to the program." I set down my teacup. "The important thing is that I'm deciding, not reacting to Richard's choices, but making my own." Catherine studied me over the rim of her mug. "You know, when this all started, I was so worried about you. I thought you might, I don't know, collapse under it all." "I nearly did," I admitted. "That day at school, when I saw his engagement announcement. I've never felt so humiliated, so erased. But you didn't stay there. You got up and started fighting back." I shook my head. "Not fighting back. Moving forward. There's a difference." And there was. Fighting back would mean orienting my life around Richard still, seeking revenge, trying to hurt him as he had hurt me. Moving forward meant making choices based on what I wanted, what I needed, where I saw myself in the future. A future that, for the first time in 23 years, I was designing entirely for myself. The next morning, my meeting with James Turner proved even more enlightening than I had anticipated. The forensic accountant had reviewed all the financial documents I had provided and discovered several concerning patterns. "Mr. Mitchell has been transferring funds to Mitchell Holdings LLC for approximately 4 years, he explained, pointing to a spreadsheet on his laptop. "Small amounts initially, but increasing significantly in the past 18 months. "The cabin property," I suggested. "That's what I thought at first," Turner agreed. "But the records show Mitchell Holdings now owns 3 properties, the cabin in Hocking Hills, a condominium in downtown Columbus, and most recently, a beachfront property in Sarasota, Florida, purchased just 2 months ago." I stared at him, processing this information. 2 months ago? That's shortly after your mother's health declined significantly, according to the timeline you provided, Turner confirmed. "There's more. Mitchell Holdings has a single member, your husband, but its operating agreement names Vanessa Adams as successor member in the event of his incapacity." The implications were staggering. Richard hadn't simply been unfaithful. He had been systematically preparing for a new life without me, moving assets beyond my reach, making provisions for Vanessa while my mother was dying. "Can we recover these assets in the divorce?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Absolutely," Turner assured me. "These are clearly marital assets being hidden in a single-member LLC. It's a common tactic, but not a particularly sophisticated one. Diana will know exactly how to address this in the divorce proceedings." As I left Turner's office, I felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. Richard's grandmother's ring, the Mitchell Holdings LLC, the beachfront property in Florida. all part of a carefully constructed plan for his new life with Vanessa. A plan that was about to encounter some significant obstacles. The mediation room at Diana Reynolds' law offices offered a stunning view of the Columbus skyline, though none of the 4 people seated around the polished conference table seemed interested in the scenery. Richard sat stiffly beside his attorney, Jack Peterson, a divorce lawyer with a reputation for aggressive tactics that had once served him well, but had diminished in effectiveness as the family court judges tired of his theatrics. Across from them, Diana maintained a posture of relaxed confidence, while I kept my expression carefully neutral. 6 days had passed since my meeting with James Turner. 6 days during which Diana had compiled a comprehensive mediation proposal that now sat in folders before each participant. "Shall we begin?" Diana suggested, after the perfunctory greetings had been exchanged. "I believe we all want to reach a reasonable settlement without prolonging these proceedings unnecessarily." Jack Peterson made a show of opening his folder and scanning the first page of our proposal. "Let's cut to the chase, Diana. Your client is requesting an inequitable distribution of assets that no judge in Franklin County would approve. 50% of all marital property plus substantial spousal support? It's excessive." Diana's smile remained pleasant, though her eyes cooled. "Actually, Jack, if you'll continue reading, you'll see we're requesting 60% of marital property, including 60% of all assets held by Mitchell Holdings LLC. Richard straightened in his chair. "Mitchell Holdings is a separate entity. It's not part of the marital estate. In fact," Diana continued as if he hadn't spoken, "we've prepared a detailed accounting of all assets transferred from joint accounts to Mitchell Holdings over the past 4 years. Assets used to purchase 3 properties, including a beachfront condo in Sarasota acquired during Mrs. Mitchell's mother's terminal illness." She slid a document across the table, the forensic accounting report James Turner had prepared, complete with transaction dates, property deeds, and the operating agreement naming Vanessa as successor member. Richard's face drained of color. "How did you—" "Let's stay focused," Jack interrupted, clearly recognizing the danger in allowing his client to speak freely. "Even if these properties were purchased with marital funds, Mrs. Mitchell would only be entitled to half their value." "Under normal circumstances, perhaps," Diana agreed. "But given Mr. Mitchell's evident attempt to hide these assets, coupled with the timing and nature of the relationship that led to the marriage's dissolution, we believe the court will view our request favorably." She turned a page in her folder, "particularly in light of certain evidence regarding Mr. Mitchell's premeditation." Richard's jaw tightened. "What evidence?" Diana merely smiled. "Evidence that demonstrates the calculated nature of Mr. Mitchell's actions, including the deliberate public humiliation of Mrs. Mitchell at her mother's funeral." Understanding dawned on Richard's face. "You can't use my private journal in court. That's an invasion of privacy." "Perhaps," Diana acknowledged. "Though I'm confident Judge Lawson, who, you may recall, lost her own mother to cancer last year, would find the contents relevant to determining equitable distribution." Richard turned to me, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You went through my desk? Read my private thoughts? That's who you are now, Eleanor?" "No," I replied calmly. "That's who I've always been. Thorough, attentive to detail, protective of my interests. You just never noticed because those qualities were always directed towards supporting you." Jack Peterson cleared his throat. "Let's take a short recess for me to confer with my client." Diana nodded graciously. "Of course. We'll reconvene in 15 minutes. As Richard and his attorney left the room, Diana turned to me. "Well done. You remained composed exactly as we discussed. It wasn't difficult," I admitted. "I expected to feel something. Anger, vindication, something. But I just feel clear." Diana's expression softened slightly. "That clarity is valuable. Hold on to it." When Richard and Jack returned, the atmosphere had shifted. Jack spoke first, his tone noticeably more conciliatory. "We've reviewed your proposal and have some counteroffers, but we believe we can reach an agreement today." The next 2 hours were spent in detailed negotiations, percentages adjusted, property allocations refined, terms of spousal support clarified. Throughout, Richard remained largely silent, speaking only when directly addressed by his attorney. By early afternoon, we had reached a settlement. I would receive the family home, which I intended to sell, 55% of all retirement accounts and investment portfolios, 60% of the value of the Mitchell Holdings properties, substantial spousal support for 5 years, declining gradually to allow me time to complete my PhD and establish a new career path, and Richard's commitment to fully fund Maddie's remaining college expenses, plus graduate school, should she choose to attend. In exchange, I agreed not to pursue claims of fraud regarding the hidden assets, and to maintain confidentiality about certain aspects of our marriage's dissolution. As Diana and Jack conferred over the final language of the agreement, Richard leaned across the table toward me. "I never meant to hurt you, Eleanor. Not like this." I met his gaze steadily. "That's the problem, Richard. You never considered me enough to think about whether your actions would hurt me. I was background, context, not a full person with my own dreams and needs." "That's not true," he protested, but weakly. "It is true, but it doesn't matter anymore." I gathered my notes, tucking them neatly into my portfolio. "I want you to know something. I'm not doing this out of vindictiveness. I'm doing it because I contributed to building everything we had together, and I deserve to leave this marriage with the resources to build something new." Richard was silent for a long moment, studying me as if seeing me for the first time. "You've changed," he finally said. "No," I corrected him. "I've remembered who I am. There's a difference." The signing of the final documents was anticlimactic. Initials and signatures on page after page, culminating in the formal dissolution of 23 years of marriage. Diana and Jack shook hands professionally, the latter managing a tight smile of acknowledgement toward me. Richard hesitated as we prepared to leave, looking like he wanted to say something more. Instead, he simply nodded once and followed his attorney from the room. "Congratulations," Diana said as we watched them go. "This is an excellent outcome." "Thank you," I replied, meaning it, for everything. "My pleasure. It's not often I get to represent someone who transforms during the process the way you have." I smiled at that. "Is that a polite way of saying I was a mess when I first came to see you?" "Not at all. You were in shock, which was entirely appropriate given the circumstances, but you didn't stay there. You assessed, adapted, and acted decisively. That's rarer than you might think." Outside Diana's office, the October afternoon was bright and crisp, the kind of perfect fall day that had always been my favorite. I stood for a moment on the sidewalk, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of the past months begin to lift. My phone chimed with a text from Catherine. "How did it go?" "It's done," I replied. "Settlement signed. I'm free." Free. The word resonated through me, both exhilarating and terrifying. Free to choose, to change, to begin again. As I walked toward the parking garage, another text arrived. This one from Marcus. "Still on for dinner tonight?" We had been meeting regularly for coffee or meals over the past weeks, our relationship evolving from colleagues to genuine friends. Nothing romantic had developed, both of us understanding that I needed time before considering that possibility. But the potential hovered between us, unspoken, but acknowledged. "Absolutely," I texted back. "I have news to share." By the time I reached my car, a third message had appeared. From Maddie. "Mom, just heard from Dad. Are you okay? Call me?" I leaned against my car and dialed her number immediately. "Mom," she answered on the first ring. "Are you all right? Dad just called to tell me about the settlement." "I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than fine, actually. It's a fair agreement. Generous, even. And most importantly, it's finished." He sounded weird, Maddie admitted. Subdued, like someone had let the air out of him. "That's an apt description," I agreed, recalling Richard's expression as he realized how thoroughly I had prepared for this confrontation. He said something else, too. Maddie's voice held a note of cautious surprise. He apologized. For everything, but especially for the funeral. Said he's been selfish and thoughtless. The admission caught me off guard. "That's unexpected." "Yeah." He also said he's postponing the wedding. That he and Vanessa need to reassess. I absorbed this information, searching for the satisfaction I might have expected to feel. Instead, I found only a quiet acknowledgement that Richard's choices were no longer central to my life, neither his betrayals nor his belated regrets. "How do you feel about that?" I asked Maddie. "Honestly, I don't care much either way. I'm still angry with him. That's not going away anytime soon." She paused. "But I care a lot about what happens next for you, Mom." "Are you really going to sell the house and move closer to campus?" "That's the plan. I already have 3 showings scheduled for this weekend. And the PhD program? Have you heard anything? Not yet. Admissions decisions won't come until January. You'll get in, Maddie said, with the absolute confidence of a daughter who believed her mother capable of anything. And when you do, I'm coming home to help you move. No arguments. I wouldn't dream of arguing with you, I assured her. I've learned that Wallace women are a force to be reckoned with. Damn straight, Maddie agreed, and I could hear the smile in her voice. After we hung up, I remained beside my car for a moment longer, contemplating Richard's apparent change of heart. Had he genuinely recognized the selfishness of his actions? Or was this simply another calculated adjustment when his original plan had failed to unfold as expected? I was surprised to realize that the answer didn't matter to me. Richard's journey was his own now, separate from mine. Whatever insights or regrets he might experience belonged to his story, not to the one I was writing for myself. I started my car and headed home, not to the house I had shared with Richard, but to the future I was creating on my own terms. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges I had yet to face, and opportunities I could barely imagine. But for the first time in longer than I could remember, that uncertainty felt like freedom. The small cafe near campus hummed with activity. Students hunched over laptops, professors grading papers, the steady rhythm of academic life flowing around me as I sipped my latte and reviewed my notes. 6 months had passed since the divorce settlement. 6 months of transformation, adjustment, and gradual renewal. Spring had come to Columbus, coating the Ohio State campus in a wash of green and brightness. Through the cafe window, I watched students sprawled on the grass, backpacks and textbooks scattered around them as they absorbed both knowledge and sunshine. Professor Wallace? I looked up to see Aisha, one of the students from the undergraduate American Literature Survey course where I served as teaching assistant, hovering uncertainly beside my table. Aisha? Hello? I greeted her warmly, still adjusting to being addressed by my maiden name, which I had reclaimed after the divorce. How's the research paper coming along? Actually, that's why I wanted to talk to you. She clutched a notebook to her chest. I was wondering if you had time to discuss my thesis statement. Professor Rodriguez said your feedback on Dickinson was really helpful for other students. Of course. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. I have office hours tomorrow, but we can talk now if you'd like. As Aisha settled in and opened her notebook, explaining her approach to analyzing gender roles in Edith Wharton's novels, I felt a familiar surge of satisfaction. This, the exchange of ideas, the guidance of developing minds, the deep dive into literature that had sustained me through my darkest moments, was exactly where I was meant to be. My acceptance to Ohio State's PhD program had arrived in January, followed by an offer for a teaching assistantship that provided a modest stipend and tuition waiver. The financial cushion from the divorce settlement had allowed me to sell the family home without rushing, waiting for the right buyer and the right price. I had found a small but charming condominium within walking distance of campus, using a portion of the proceeds to purchase it outright, ensuring I would never again face housing insecurity. After spending 20 minutes helping Aisha refine her thesis and suggesting additional sources, I watched her leave with renewed confidence, then returned to my own work. Research for a conference paper I would be presenting in Chicago next month. My first academic publication as Eleanor Wallace, PhD candidate. My phone chimed with a text from Catherine. Just got your invitation. Love the new place. Dinner still on for Saturday. I had hosted a small housewarming party the previous weekend. Just family and close friends celebrating my new home and new beginning. Catherine had been unable to attend due to a work commitment, but had promised to visit as soon as possible. Absolutely, I replied. Marcus is cooking. Says he has a special menu planned. Marcus and I had been dating officially for 3 months, our relationship developing with deliberate slowness. He had been patient, understanding my need to establish independence before opening my heart to someone new. Our connection had grown from friendship into something deeper, built on mutual respect and shared interests, rather than the youthful passion that had characterized my relationship with Richard. At 53, I found this mature love both surprising and welcome, less dramatic than what I had known before, but steadier, more thoughtful. Marcus understood the demands of my academic pursuits and supported them wholeheartedly, just as I supported his recent promotion to department chair at Riverside High School. Catherine's response came quickly. Ooh, it's serious if he's cooking. Can't wait to meet him properly. Michael and Jennifer are coming too, right? Yes. Full family dinner. Maddie's sorry to miss it. Finals week. Maddie had adjusted to the changes in our family structure with remarkable resilience. Her relationship with Richard remained complicated, civil but distant. She had refused to meet Vanessa, a boundary Richard had reluctantly accepted. More surprisingly, the engagement had indeed been postponed indefinitely, though Richard and Vanessa remained together, their relationship apparently surviving the scrutiny and adjustments required by the divorce settlement. I found I could think of them now without pain, with a detached curiosity at most, occasionally tinged with pity. Richard had lost more than he realized in his pursuit of a second chance at happiness. Not just his marriage and the respect of his daughter, but the foundation of genuine partnership that comes from building a life together through challenge and sacrifice. Gathering my notes and laptop, I left the cafe and walked across the sunlit campus toward the library, where I had reserved a study room for the afternoon. Students streamed past me, their youth and energy reminiscent of my own undergraduate days. Back then, I had been so certain about the path my life would take. Marriage, career, family, all unfolding in predictable sequence. How wrong I had been. How fortunate that life had other plans. My phone rang as I approached the library steps. Maddie's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered. "How's study week going?" "Brutal, but I'm managing. How about you? Professor Rodriguez still working you to death?" I laughed. "She's demanding, but in the best way. I'm learning so much." "Good, because I have news, and I need you fully alert." Something in her voice made me pause at the top of the library steps. "What is it? Is everything okay?" "Everything's great. Amazing, actually." She took a deep breath. "I got into the Columbia journalism program. Full scholarship." Joy surged through me. "Maddie, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. I just got the email. You're the first person I called." Her voice caught slightly. "I wanted you to know first because you're the reason I applied in the first place." "Me? What do you mean?" "Watching you this year, Mom. Seeing you rebuild everything from scratch. Going after your dream even when it was terrifying." She paused. "You showed me what courage looks like. Not the dramatic kind in movies, but the real kind. Getting up every day and choosing to move forward, even when it would be easier to give up." Tears pricked at my eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. "Maddie, I mean it, Mom. When Dad left, I was so afraid for you. I thought you'd be, I don't know, broken forever. But instead you got stronger. You became more you." She laughed softly. "I keep telling my roommates, my mom is badass, and they think I'm talking about some cool young mom, not a 50-something English professor. 53 is hardly ancient," I protested, but I was smiling through my tears. "You know what I mean. You redefined everything. Your career, your home, your relationships. You didn't just survive what happened. You used it to build something better." Her words struck me with their simple truth. I had done exactly that, not from some innate strength or wisdom, but from necessity and determination, one small choice at a time. "So," Maddie continued, "when I was deciding whether to apply to Columbia, which seemed completely out of reach, I just kept thinking about you. If Mom can start a whole new career at 52, I can definitely send in one scary application. Columbia is lucky to have you," I said firmly. "But how do you feel about New York? It's a big change from Ohio." "That's the other thing I learned from you. Sometimes big changes are exactly what we need." After we hung up, I sat on the library steps for a long moment, absorbing Maddie's news and the unexpected gift of her perspective on the past year. I had been so focused on my own journey, on rebuilding and moving forward, that I hadn't fully recognized the impact my choices were having on my daughter. The afternoon sun warmed my face as students flowed around me, hurrying to classes or study sessions, their lives in motion just as mine was. 6 months ago, I could never have imagined sitting here like this, a doctoral student with a promising academic future, a woman rediscovering her capacity for love and connection, a mother whose daughter saw her not as a victim, but as an inspiration. My phone chimed with another text, this one from Marcus. "Just found fresh halibut for Saturday. Catherine is going to love it. Can't wait to meet your family. P.S. Miss your face. Dinner tonight?" I smiled, typing back, "Dinner sounds perfect. And yes, they're going to love you too." as I slipped my phone back into my bag and climbed the remaining steps to the library entrance. I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, the woman who had watched her husband walk into her mother's funeral with his mistress, who had felt erased and replaced, whose identity had been so thoroughly entwined with her role as wife that she couldn't imagine who she might be without it. That woman hadn't disappeared. She was still part of me, her pain and resilience woven into the fabric of who I had become. But she was no longer all of me, no longer even most of me. The future stretched before me now, not as a terrifying void, but as a landscape of possibility. There would be challenges ahead, the rigors of doctoral study, the complexities of blending my new relationship with family traditions, the ongoing navigation of post-divorce dynamics with Richard. But I would face those challenges as Eleanor Wallace, professor, scholar, mother, partner, friend, a woman who had discovered, in the wreckage of betrayal, the foundation of her own strength, and that discovery, painful as it had been, was a gift I would never return.